Thank you so much for joining us on our news desk on QTV. In our headlines, President Hakainde Hichilema says it is shameful for African countries to be hungry. The annual inflation rate for January 2023 has reduced to 9.4% from 9.9% recorded in December 2022. And Patriotic Front presidential hopeful Chimbakambwili has asked government to move with speed in dealing with the rising cost of living in the country. And now the news in detail. President Hakainde Hichilema says it is shameful for African countries to be hungry. Speaking at the Dakar 2 summit in West Africa, Senegal, themed Feed Africa, Food Resilience and Food Sovereignty, President Hichilema says food security is key to political stability. The president has stressed that food security also enhances democracy and economic and social development. The head of state says the private sector is a key stakeholder and critical to government's Feed Africa agenda and the green revolution in the country and the continent at large, as they bring in appropriate technology and expertise that leverage growth of the agriculture industry. President Hichilema is in Dakar, Senegal at the invitation of Macky Sall, President of Senegal and Chairperson of the African Union, where he is participating in the Dakar 2 Summit on Agriculture from 25th to 27th January 2023.
We are bringing in the private sector as critical to our agenda towards the green revolution for the country, for the region and Africa. And here today in our delegation, we have wheat farmers. 3 wheat farmers are amidst us who have come with us as the Zambia delegation. And I think that is important for us as governments to bring in the private sector to spend public money on the private sector as well, because they are integral to our Feeding Africa agenda. Finally, I can say many things, but it really is not necessary. As a country, we are clear areas where we are sufficient in food, but we want to include that in wheat, we want to include that beef. We have the competitive advantage. Within the climate change challenges, Zambia still has the hydrology, still has the soils, agronomical conditions, still has really the expansive land that is available that should be put into production. But in addition, no need to open new areas when we are underutilizing the existing land for agriculture. So productivity is very important to us here. Small scalers are still very low in productivity. We want to support them to increase the productivity. For the same hectareage, same fertilizer, and same other services or inputs. Very, very important to look at it for us as a country. Finally, just to indicate that it's shameful for us to be hungry as Africa. We must accept that. We must accept that. Political leaders, us here, our farmers, our business people, we must wash away this shame. We must wash away this shame to our children, to our widows, and the like. It's very, very important. Food security is key for political stability. Food security is key for political stability. Very important for enhancing democracy. When people have eaten, they think better. They make better choices. And ultimately, food security is important for economic and social development. So there is a vicious cycle which we must accept: jobs, business opportunities, and indeed social equity. Thank you very much.
The Council of Churches in Zambia, CCZ, has observed that the threat that atomic bombs pose to humanity and all the nations as such, anything that poses a threat to the well-being of human beings remains a matter of great concern to the Church. Council General Secretary Emmanuel Chikoya believes a nuclear weapon anywhere is a threat everywhere, and that no individual or country is safe from the impact of nuclear weapons, not even those who possess them. And Father Chikoya has called upon government to ratify the treaty, saying prevention is better than cure, and calls for government to protect the nation and the world at large from the deadly threats that nuclear weapons possess. He says the Russia-Ukraine war serves as a constant reminder on how unsafe the world can be with active weapons, because people or countries could easily resort to them in moments of conflict.
Therefore, the Council of Churches in Zambia commends the United Nations for developing the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the TPNW. The Council also commends the great move that was made by the government of the Republic of Zambia in 2019 when it signed the TPNW, which includes a comprehensive set of prohibitions on participating in any nuclear weapon development activities. In this regard, the Council of Churches in Zambia calls upon the government of the Republic of Zambia to ratify and domesticate the treaty. CCZ believes prevention is better than cure and calls for the government to protect the nation and the world at large from the deadly threats that nuclear weapons possess. It is our considered view and informed view that only peace will bring about peace.
The annual inflation rate for January 2023 has reduced to 9.4% from 9.9% recorded in December 2022. This means that on average, prices of goods and services increased by 9.4% between January 2022 and January 2023. Of the overall 9.4% annual inflation, the food and non-alcoholic beverages group contributed 6.6 percentage points, while the non-food group accounted for 2.8 percentage points. Zambia Statistics Agency, Zamstat's interim statistician general, Mlenga Msepa, says of the 2.8 percentage points, housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels contributed the highest at 0.8 percentage points, followed by clothing and footwear and transport at 0.5 percentage points each. Mr. Msepa says the rest of the non-food group accounted for the remaining 1.0 percentage points. Mr. Msepa says Lusaka province contributed the highest at 3.0 percentage points, while Copperbelt province contributed 1.9 percentage points to the overall annual inflation of 9.4% in the month under review. And Mr. Msepa says the cumulative total trade for the period January to December 2022 was 349.7 billion kwacha, while that of 2021 for the same period was 360.2 billion kwacha, representing a 2.9% decrease. Zambia has ratified the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the establishment of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. Zambia becomes the 34th country on the continent to accede to the protocol that seeks to strengthen the human rights protection system in Africa and compliance with the African Charter on Human or People's Rights, as well as other international human rights instruments through judicial decisions. Speaking when she deposited the original instruments of accession to the African Union, charged the affairs at the Zambian embassy in Ethiopia, Namakao Akaperwa Yeta, says Zambia is committed to working closely with the AU and its organs to achieve the aspirations of the Agenda 2063. And African Union Commission AUC senior human rights expert of the Department of Political Affairs, Ambassador Salah Ahmad, has commended government for depositing the vital instrument. He says the ratification of the protocol by government shows the willingness and readiness of government to support the African Union's agenda to protect human and people's rights on the continent. This is according to a statement issued by Zambia's First Secretary for Press and Tourism in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Inutu Mwanza. Police in Lusaka are investigating a case of obtaining goods by false pretenses involving a traditional healer who is believed to have gotten away with a motor vehicle belonging to his client. Police received a report from a named man, age 61, of Lusaka, that his Toyota Prado, valued at 137,000 kwacha, was fraudulently obtained by a traditional healer only identified as Dr. Salapo of Mandevu Compound. Confirming the development, Assistant Public Relations Officer Godfrey Chilawi says investigations have revealed that the complainant has a son with a mental health condition, and he engaged the said traditional healer to treat him.
Since he had no money to pay, he was asked to surrender his motor vehicle together with a white book as surety before the commencement of treatment. The complainant handed over the vehicle as instructed. However, the patient was not treated and the traditional healer has since disappeared with the said motor vehicle. He is believed to have fled to a named neighboring country. Police manhunt has since been launched.
Patriotic Front Presidential Hopeful Shimba Kambwili has asked government to move with speed in dealing with the rising cost of living in the country. Mr. Kambwili says the UPND government must ensure that, as a matter of urgency, addresses the issues of skyrocketing prices of basic commodities such as food, electricity and fuel. He says the president should swallow his pride and stop the export of electricity, which he said is a contributing factor to the high cost of living. Mr. Kambwili has warned that if President Hakainde Hichilema does not prioritize how he intends to work on reducing the high cost of living, he will lose trust from those who voted for him.
Ishi ya malaiti na alilanda pono kulanda ichavi parliaments valikana ukweva they are not going to stop exporting electricity when the people of Zambia are suffering.
Very sad.
Za UPND umwe wa muntu abamukutwi. Listen to the suffering of the people. Listen to the complaints of the people and do the right thing. I know that load shedding can be minimized if we stop exports. But our friends have said they will continue with exports while we are suffering.
And Rock of Glory Church Bishop Andrew Mununga has called on the Ministry of Agriculture to come up with measures that will put an end to exorbitant meal prices. Bishop Mununga feels the current prices of maize, which have gone as far as 210 kwacha in some places, are exploitative to ordinary citizens. He has expressed fear that if remedial measures are not put in place, then shop owners will continue to make abnormal profits at the expense of poor Zambians who contribute to the food security of the country.
In the same bag of milling at some 190, others 200, the other milling at 220 kwacha, which is well too much. Why should the poor be robbed like that? Daylight. And yet we have the Minister of Agriculture in the office, whose mandate is to see to it that no one is taken over an advantage by anybody else. And to that effect, I hereby give a very strong warning to the Minister of Agriculture that if he continues to operate in a manner that he's doing now, then it's better for him to resign or get fired. Look, there is no way that the poor should be punished, when we know very well. By the way, the other thing that has come out so strong from what I've investigated is that right now, they are boasting out there. They are saying they will buy more cars within 1 month or so as a result of overcharging the prices of milling. Have you seen that now? It has gone to that extent. And yet we have people in the country who must help out.
SMEs to think outside the box and begin to do things differently from the business. He adds that for SMEs to grow, there is need to change the perception on a number of things by focusing more on the transformatory approach in the manner business is conducted. And speaking earlier at the same event, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises Development, Yvonne Mpundu, says the ministry is aware that micro, small and medium enterprises in the country face many constraints in their pursuit to set up and grow their business into viable enterprises. The World Health Organization, WHO, has committed to offering technical support to Zambia Medicines and Regulatory Authority, ZAMRA, and the National Health Insurance Management Authority. This is in order to complement the government's efforts aimed at strengthening the procurement system of pharmaceuticals and medical supplies and the provision of quality health and insurance. The World Health Organization also committed to supporting the prestigious role of President Hakainde Hichilema as Global Cholera Control Champion, a role which was assumed in May 2022 under the Global Task Force on Cholera Control. The commitment was made on 23rd January 2023 by World Health Organization Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus during a meeting with permanent representative of the Republic of Zambia to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva and Vienna at the World Health Organization headquarters in Geneva, Eunice Luyamba. During the meeting, the ambassador thanked the World Health Organization for the technical and financial support that the World Health Organization rendered to Zambia during the COVID-19 crisis. She noted that while Zambia has recently seen a rise in the number of COVID-19 cases, government is hopeful that with the vaccination rate at 79.5% out of 10.9 million eligible population, it will significantly lower the spread of the virus. Ambassador Luyambia also emphasized the importance of ensuring prevention and treatment of other diseases that pose a risk to the global health system, development and security, such as polio, cholera, and non-communicable diseases. This is contained in a statement issued by the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Zambia in Geneva. Rural Electrification Authority Chief Executive Officer Linus Chanda says the authority is targeting to sign about 41 memorandums of understanding with different local councils to enhance access to electricity by the local people. Speaking during the signing of the first memorandum of understanding with Katuba District Council in Chiwombo District, Mr. Chanda says this is a beginning of the journey that will enable easy access to electricity connection of people in Chiwombo constituency. Mr. Chanda says the signing of the memorandum of understanding is the beginning of the implementation of the Priority Rural Electrification Project PREP, which was arrived at after the realization that local authorities have their own priorities in their jurisdiction that would require electrification through local resources. He says RIA took proactive steps to assist in this regard and engaged members of parliament and local authorities through sensitization and other engagements.
It will go a long way in enhancing the livelihoods of the people. And as the Council Secretary mentioned, this will help us to achieve one of the strategic development goals under the UN, which is Strategic Development Goal number 7. It will also help us to ensure efficient implementation of priority rural electrification projects under the Rural Electrification Master Plan for sites under Katuba constituency. And to this extent, Honorable MP, I can confirm that we have been working closely together with the District Council and yourself in order to identify your areas of priority in the constituency. We will also ensure sensitization of the rural population in Katuba constituency on the mandate of RIA and the benefits of electricity and renewable energy. And we will also leverage on building the capacity of qualified members of rural population in Katuba constituency in project management, data management, financial literacy, operations and maintenance of off-grid energy systems. The Council Chairperson did refer to the fact that there are cooperatives that have been formed, and we also look forward to working with those cooperatives that will have interest in operating some of the off-grid systems that we will put up together with us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to actualize these benefits, our initial studies have indicated that there are 36 institutions that are listed under PREPS in Katuba constituency of Chiwombo district. And our estimates have indicated that we need around 100 million kwacha in order to electrify these areas. This sounds like an enormous amount. However, we are confident that through this partnership, these projects can be phased and implemented over a reasonable period of time. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in a world where technology advances every day, the demand for reliable electricity to drive the economy in Chiwombo.
And speaking at the same event, Katuba Member of Parliament Mabasheke Nkulukusa says working together as a team in Katuba has helped in achieving development in the constituency. Mr. Nkulupsa says the electrification of Katuba will create a lot of opportunities for people of Katuba, as it will promote more businesses and, in essence, create more jobs for the youths in Katuba.
21st century and modern politics, the media is called the fourth estate. They give that balance, that check, that ensure that first of all, they deliver and disseminate information, but they also make sure that we do our part, because when we don't do, they report to the people. So we really recognize you. CEO, I want to also agree, like what many have said, that this is the most joyous day for the people of Katuba. We actually felt that once we electrify Katuba and ensure that people have access to electricity, they are going to achieve some of the following. Number one is that they will create jobs through increased entrepreneurship. We all know, like the DC talked about, with increased supply of electricity in the constituency, we are going to see a lot of agro-business in this constituency grow. And that is part of the strategy to create jobs and reduce youths from doing other things. We know that with increased electricity supply in the constituency, juvenile delinquency is going to reduce, because more jobs, more productivity is going to go up. CEO, we know that once you improve electricity, you are bringing one of the greatest catalysts to business growth and also to intellectual growth. Many of the pupils in my constituency today do not attend or learn technology classes because they have no access to technological equipment, because those technological equipments require electricity. So we are going to see the education sector improve. The people that...
And in a vote of thanks, Headman Manyama, who represented Chieftain Sumbwe, has expressed gratitude to Rural Electrification Authority for coming to the area with a project of electricity connection. He says this project will open various doors of development for the people, especially in rural areas, who will be able to participate in smart agriculture and grow the chicken business as a result of having electricity connection.
Which you have electrified for us in the district. It is just last year we were witnessing 3 or 4 places where you did electrify. One of it in Memorial, it was the Kulambakuwano site. Chiefs has been demanding for electrifying that place for a long time. I can say maybe starting in the local government. But we saw it being electrified, and the other area was the primary schools electrified. And there was another area in Katuba here. They were just so dirty, but today the signing of this MOU is something which is going even to make us strong and jointly effort to be together to make sure that most of our infrastructures, especially government infrastructure like schools, clinics, will be taken on as we make sure that we focus to electrify. Not only that, as you are aware that this government have come up with the mobilizing women, mobilizing youth to form a lot of cooperatives. And the physics for this government will no longer be just getting seasonal inputs to be waiting for another season when it passes. We want to also go into irrigation. So the coming of power, wherever it will be passed, those cooperatives along those lines it will be a chance of them now to take a very serious.
The Zambia Revenue Authority ZRA has appealed to customs officers to uphold integrity in the running of duties and responsibilities in order to curb smuggling in the country. Speaking during the commemoration of the International Customs Day, ZRA Acting Commissioner General Joseph Nonde says smuggling of illegal goods has been a major challenge in the country, hence the need to tighten measures to mitigate the scourge. Mr. Nonde states that this can only be done by imparting customs knowledge in employees so that they are well informed even as they execute their duties.
This year's commemoration is even more special because we are also celebrating the 70th anniversary of the World Customs Organization, a unique organization dedicated to knowledge sharing and international cooperation on customs matters. Colleagues, to us, this year's theme is all about placing human capital and especially the new generation at the heart of the transformation agenda of Zambia Revenue Authority. The theme resonates very well with the aspiration of Zambia Revenue Authority's corporate strategic plan for 2022 to 2024, particularly under the strategic pillar on having the right people. Okay? In line with this, our commitment as ZRA is to hire the right people, and after that to build capacity in our members of staff through training, coaching, mentoring and change management. In ensuring that young leaders, and there are many such in Zambia Revenue Authority, are well prepared for future roles and to equip the next generation with necessary leadership skills and experience, the authority has put in place the talent management and succession policy. If you haven't seen this already, please look for it. It explains how the succession and talent and management in Zambia Revenue Authority should be done.
And speaking at the same event, ZRA Acting Commissioner in charge of Customs Services, Patricia Lungu, says the authority will continue to facilitate legitimate trade in the country.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Customs Services Division has embraced the theme by placing human capital at the heart of the transformation of customs. For example, the division has been offering learning opportunities through World Customs Organization under the Virtual Customs Orientation Academy and the Japan World Customs Organization Human Resource Development Program, which offers customs master's degree programs. The academy aims to provide new customs officers with an understanding of international customs standards and how they might be interpreted and applied in the day-to-day operations. The division has so far processed over 50 applications for the program. Some of the successful trainees are among the recipients of the Certificates of Merit this year, today actually. Further, the division this year intends to intensify post-training. Last year, the division, through Learning and Development Unit, was able to identify trainers at Lusaka Port Office, Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, Nakonde and Kazungula One-Stop Border Post. This year, we hope to identify trainers at Chirundu One-Stop Border Post, Chanida and Ndora Port Office.
This year's International Customs Day is being commemorated under the theme Nurturing the Next Generation, Promoting a Culture of Knowledge Sharing and Professional Pride in Customs. Government has released funds to Road Development Agency RDA for the construction of Aluni Alco Bridge in Kanchiria constituency of Muchinga Province. Patriotic Front Kanchiria Member of Parliament Sunday Chanda says the Aluni Alco Bridge will be constructed by Zambia National Service ZNS and RDA will provide technical support including supervising bridge construction works. Mr. Chanda says the bridge was initially among the different Alco bridges earmarked to be funded and constructed under the 2022 supplementary budget, which was passed by Parliament last year in 2022. He says Alunai Bridge has been a huge source of pain and grief for several decades because families have lost their precious loved ones, both young and old, trying to cross on this point, especially during the rainy season. Opposition Africa's Democratic and Economic Development Organization, ADIDO Vice President Daniel Nyati, has welcomed the development of Anthony Walya to Tanzania as the Deputy Ambassador, saying he did not deliver in his former position as presidential spokesperson. And Mr. Nyati has advised President Hichilema not to base the replacement of former presidential spokesperson Anthony Walya on tribal lines, but must appoint someone based on merit. He further observes that President Hichilema should defy all insinuations that he is appointing and demoting people based on their tribe and not merit by appointing a competent person in the position of the presidential spokesperson. On Wednesday, President Hakainde Hichilema appointed presidential spokesperson Anthony Walya as Deputy High Commissioner at the Zambian Embassy in the United Republic of Tanzania. United Bank of Africa UBA Group Managing Director Oliver Alowua says it is high time that African countries started utilizing the minerals that they are endowed with. Mr. Alowua tells Q News in an interview that it is disappointing that African countries export all minerals that they have and yet import the finished products of the resources that were exported. He says the governments and the private sector have to come together and know that there is need to begin the process these raw materials than exporting all the time.
And we export all the weight and around our resources to other countries, and we go back to import the products from the resources we exported. That has got to change. Governments, private sector need to come together and know that we need to begin to process the raw materials that we have and create the jobs that will keep exporting every day to other economies of the world.
We now take our final break, and to end the news, we join DW with a roundup of international news.
It's Republic Day in India, celebrating the establishment of the country's constitution, and there's much fanfare with performances and a display of the country's military. It's a day of pride, and in the era of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, all the more important given his political party's brand of Hindu nationalism. It's been an important year for India, especially on the world stage, with Western democracies watching how India chooses to engage with Russia and watching how it approaches China. There is no question the country is a key power that can change the geopolitical dynamic in the Asia region. We have Manoj Joshi, Distinguished Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, with us. Thank you so much for joining the program. There was a recent poll from the U.S. agency, Morning Consult, that said people in India view China as the country's greatest military threat and not Pakistan. Now, it's just one poll, but it does indicate quite the shift. Can you talk about that?
Well, I would suggest that that is more so of the strategic community, meaning people who write and comment on strategic affairs. But I think there is still a deep distrust of Pakistan amongst the average Indian. So I would say that we need a little bit more polling, if I may put it that way, to get an accurate view of the Indian public perception.
Now, why do you think the national security community in India feels that way about China, though?
Well, one reason is that Pakistan itself is in deep trouble. It has huge economic problems. There are political crises. There are all sorts of problems there. On the other hand, we have had a difficult couple of years with China. We had a fairly good relationship, but it all came apart in 2020. And right now, there is a pretty substantial build-up going on both sides of the line of actual control between India and China, that marks the border between India and China. And so therefore, there is a perception in India that China is the big threat now. And as part of this, India has also reoriented some of its army, which was used to face Pakistan, is now facing China.
Now, can you explain how the Modi administration sees India's role in the Indo-Pacific?
Well, the Indian role in the Indo-Pacific is somewhat cautious. Unlike many other countries like Australia or Japan, we are not part of a US alliance system. Also, India has a dual nature. It is a continental country as well as an oceanic country. And right now, from the point of view of security, it is the continental part which worries India, not so much the oceanic.
Now, it is a country, though, that is growing in confidence, becoming more important for the region. Though in many ways, the country has been rather touchy, though, when it comes to receiving criticism. Most recently, a BBC documentary on Prime Minister Modi has been met with a fierce reaction. There have been attempts to ban screenings of the film, which looks at Modi's role during anti-Muslim riots in 2002. You can see some of the pictures of demonstrations, people protesting against bans of the film. The film alleges that Modi, who at the time was the premier of the state of Gujarat, turned a blind eye to violence that left at least 1,000 dead. He, of course, dismisses it as propaganda. But I want to share what one student had to say about the ban on the film.
This is the time of the Indian youth to put up the truth, which everybody knows, because it's hatred everywhere in India. The Muslim-Hindu, the tensions between the religious problems are increasing day by day. We can't let this happen again, because we know what is the truth is. We know what the Prime Minister is doing to the societies, to the states and everything. So we can't let this happen again.
Now, I'll talk about the regional impact of this, but first of all, what do you think about the government's move to ban this film?
Well, Mr. Modi is very sensitive personally to criticism, and this government is. Otherwise, India has been fairly open to criticism, Indian leaders in the past. But Mr. Modi occupied the kind of a cult-like figure. And he feels that anything like this is derogatory to him, his image is affected by this. And so he's particularly sensitive, especially about the 2002 events, extremely serious and tragic, and many people have alleged direct links between Mr. Modi and those events.
Yeah, this is worth bringing up right now simply because we're having a conversation about India as a growing regional power and, how critical it is in the world, whether it's with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and people turning to India to see how the country will position itself. But of course, also India has a very interesting relationship with Japan. It's also involved in the Quad, which is part of Australia, United States, Japan. So it's playing a very important role in all these dynamics. And so this incident, India is a democracy, yet at times it's certainly not acting that way.
Well, certainly when efforts are made to ban something, information is blocked. That's certainly not a democratic approach. And many of us feel that there is a rising autocratic trend in India, and this is often manifested by actions like such bans.
Now, we talk about India's national security concerns, both continental and also oceanic. And its rising power, of course, also means that people look to the country. Do you think India is a model. of democracy for the region?
Well, being one of the few democracies in the region, I would say it's a model. But I think India needs to also address its democratic deficit in a lot of areas. You see, just being an electoral democracy is not enough. I mean, just having elections and to select the government is not enough. Democracy means much more than that. It means personal liberties, it means freedom of speech, and it means accepting uncomfortable the videos like the one that the BBC has made. So I think India needs to deepen its democracy much, much more. And certainly we are already a model, but we'd be a better model, I think, if we did that.
Very last question, very quickly. What do you think is the most important thing that India can do to show the region that it is a strong democracy?
Well, I think certainly it needs to change the way it deals with dissent within the country. I think there is a tendency to have a kind
Somerset Records.